Hi, my name is David Brown. I'm an architect in the Microsoft Technology Centre in the UK, and I'm going to be talking to you about the NUIverse project. So this is the start screen. You can see there's no controls at this stage, but what I can do is use direct interaction to manipulate the camera in 3 dimensions. So I can move the camera around, panning it this way. I can move up and down or side to side, and I can use one or more touches to do that. Clearly, when I've got more than one touch, I can roll the camera as well. So I can use 2 touches here to roll the camera, or I can zoom in and out of the body here, just doing pinch zoom gestures, for example. I can use 2 fingers and 2 hands, or 2 fingers on 1 hand, really whatever is necessary. I can use 5 fingers in 1 hand as well. And you can combine these gestures in interesting ways, so I can pan and zoom at the same time. I can roll and pan at the same time, and all this is possible because of the direct interaction you've got with the surface. So I've got some transparent tags here that have been placed on the back of some transparent discs. I can use these for heads-up displays in the app. So if I drop that on the surface, you can see as I rotate it around, it's going to show me a compass view of the planet. So I'm focused on Earth, so this shows me how far I'm away from Earth. I'm about 100,000 kilometers at the moment, and I'm tracking around at about 88 degrees east and 27 degrees north, and a bearing of about 60 degrees. And you can see that the data changes as I move in and I move around the body. So I'm right above the pole at this stage. Now I'm back above the horizon. I've got a couple of other tags as well. So these are effectively eyepiece tags, but also showing information on what's underneath the reticle. So if I turn that around to face us, we can see that that's a particular star in the Hipparcos catalogue, and it tells me information about that star. And we can drop as many of these tags as we like on the surface, and when there's lots of people looking at the surface, they can have them in the relevant orientation to them. And we can move the background around and it will show the nearest object, or we can move the tag around and place it over a star that's of interest and see information on that star. So I'm going to turn on a couple of other settings now. So if I turn on orbits and labels, so I can orientate where I am in space, and I'm actually just going to change the camera angle a little bit as well. So if I zoom back out, you can see the orbits of the other planets in the solar system, and if I zoom out quite a long way, you can see that I've got the whole solar system to play with here. And I can move around and jump between different objects just by touching and holding on those objects. So for example, if I wanted to view Saturn, if I just touch and hold on Saturn, I zoom into Saturn, and we can then explore Saturn and its rings and its moons. Again, using the same type of interactions that we saw before. I can zoom the planet, I can rotate my camera, and I can track around the planet. And this is rendered in real time, so I can actually control time in this app as well. I can unpause it and start turning up the time factor here, so that we're running now at about 10,000 times real time. And if I zoom out and turn up time by about 10 million times, you can see the orbit start tracking around the sun. And you can see how the shadow is going to change shape. So not only will the shadow move up and down the body, let's turn up time even more, you can see it moving up and down the body here. The shape across the rings will change as the angle changes as we move around the sun. And you'd only really be able to see this if you can speed up time this amount and still keep relatively still with relation to the body. So I've added a couple of controls to the screen here so I can change some of the settings in this app. What we're seeing here is a real-time rendering of quite a few aspects in the solar system, and we're currently focused on Earth. So I'm going to click on camera here on both of these 2 menus, and on this menu I'm going to pick zoom, on this menu I'm going to click field of view. And what I've got here is now a dial that I can use to control on this menu how close I am to the planet, and on this view the field of view, this menu, the field of view of the camera. And we can then start combining these gestures with direct touch on the background, so I can pan and zoom at the same time, I can roll and zoom at the same time. I can come up with some quite fluid and complex gestures that would be difficult to do if I was just using controls or a keyboard or a mouse. I can also use multi-touch gestures here, so if I put my hand on this dial, I can start rotating this dial in a more natural way using 5 fingers rather than just 1. I can also make things more accurate by pulling out a call out here and actually rotating this dial using this type of interaction to give a more accurate or fine-grained control. And because Surface supports so many touch points, I can start doing these rich rotation gestures with more than one menu. So on this dial I can rotate the distance to the planet. On this dial I can start moving the camera around, and I can do that at the same time and start coming up with some interesting interactions that would be kind of hard to do without supporting this many touch points at the same time. So let's explore what we can do with the camera. So I've got a orbit camera at the moment that I can use to move around the planet just by dragging and rolling and zooming. But say I just wanted to look around, I can change the camera to be a free camera, and then I can just start keeping fixed in space but moving around and changing the direction I'm looking. I can also roll as well. If I wanted to jump right in and have a look at some detail, I can zoom right into the planet and the textures will sharpen up in just a second. And I can switch again to a free camera and pan around and see what the horizon looks like. And again I can start panning, zooming, rolling, all in this camera mode, just when I'm pretty close to the horizon. So we've got a pretty realistic planet rendered in real time. A lot of the planets have got textures as well, so you can explore the other planets in similar levels of detail. So let's jump back out into orbit again. And let's turn up time. So if I speed up time by, say, 100 times or so, you can see the planet starting to rotate now, as you would expect. And we're just staying fixed in space and watching the planet rotate. But if I turn the camera to a geosynchronous mode, what we then do is stay fixed over a point in a coordinate on the planet and watch the background rotate relative to the planet. And we can then obviously see the sun move around the planet and cast a shadow. So if I speed up time again, we can see the shadow move across the surface of the Earth and then sunrise come around the other side. Let's just switch it back to orbit now. Or I could just look at where the Earth is and then stay fixed in space. So this will tend to fly away, in this case fly away from me and then fly off into the distance. And I'm just staying fixed at this point and watching the Earth fly away. So if I change the direction of time, it will come back towards me and then fly past us. And we get pretty close when we do the flyby, so things will get pretty big. There we go. And we can still roll around in that zoom, that mode as well. So we're looking at the moon here from an altitude of about 5,000 kilometers. Time is running, the camera is not moving. You can just see Earth just popping out from the horizon, much like the famous moonrise shot that NASA had. We're at a pretty high telephoto here, so you can see the Earth in the distance. It looks pretty similar to the shot. So because we've got such a lot of GPU power on this device, we can start adding some 3D objects to the system. So I've got some satellites in orbit around the Earth here. So we've got things like the Hubble Space Telescope, the International Space Station. So this is great because I can see where these satellites are at any point in time, fly into them and see their view of the planet. And I can add any type of model to this. So here, for example, if I fly into this unidentified object, you might recognize this from Battlestar Galactica. So I've got the Galactica in orbit around the Earth at this point. And I can start looking at the Earth from the perspective of the ship. So let's just zoom out a little bit and have a look at the sky. We can add some other items to the sky here. So, for example, if we wanted to look at the constellations, we can turn on the constellations here and have a look at those. Let me just zoom out a little bit so that we get a better view of those. So we can move around the sky, look at the constellations. I can turn on the constellation boundaries, for example, so we can see where those different constellations are. And you can change the colours of all of this. At the moment, everything's just white. So we can also control how many stars we see. All of these stars are rendered in real time. They're not images of the background sky. So for example, if I wanted to only look at a particular type of spectral type or stars that have planets, I could control that. So as a start, let's just have a look at different magnitudes. So I can have an automatic magnitude here, so that when I change the field of view, I don't like overwhelm the screen with too many stars as I zoom out. So if I turn off that auto magnitude and control manually how many stars I see, you can see that I can reduce the number of stars or I can increase it. And I can increase it a lot. There's about 100,000 stars that I can render in real time here. So I'm probably rendering about 20,000 stars on the screen at any one time here at the moment. And we can do the same thing with labels as well. I can add and remove labels to make sure that we can see as many labels as we want. And the nice thing about this GPU is that it's so performant that I can add thousands and thousands of labels and everything still tracks at an interactive frame rate.